Hey guys, Colin Elam again, aka the Musket Man, and I am back for another episode of Gun Table Talk. In today's episode, I'm going to be doing a comparison between the 1757 Spanish musket and the Brown Bess musket. This won't be really going over a history of the Spanish musket. I haven't done a Gun Table Talk video about it yet, and that's mainly because I don't know a lot of the history that's tied to this gun. So I'm just going to go over it as a gun itself and the reproduction and compare it to the Brown Bess. So anyway guys, thanks for joining me. So you've probably seen some of my videos where I've taken both of these out to the range and shot them. And once again, thank you for watching those videos. It helps me a lot. So there's one thing I wanted to go over, just over the guns itself. They're both Pedersoli guns, which if you own those, they're very high quality guns. They do a great job. They work very well. But I wanted to go over like how the shooting compares, especially the Brown Bess is 75 cal, the Spanish musket is 69, almost 70 caliber, and just how it differs. So let's start with the 1757 Spanish. So this gun, again, you've seen this before. Also, like I said, Pedersoli reproduction, 69 caliber. This gun was actually one of the first Flintlock Muskets I ever got, and I've owned it about a year and a half now. And the one thing I do like about it is I like the thickness of the buttstock. It's really neat, feels good. The brass butt plate, it's actually not true brass. It's got like that brass coating on it. Fitting's pretty good. Round barrel. This initially was designed to have barrel bands, which I've discussed this before with this gun. As you can see, the front one that also holds the barrel to the stock and the ramrod. Upon first shooting this, I noticed it did not have the barrel band spring like it does up here at the front, which keeps it intact. The two back here did not have that. So I took it out, shot it, everything went well, cleaned the gun, got home. Months later, took it out for another range session, took it out of the stock, and the barrel bands just came off. And it ended up scratching the stock a little bit and parts of the barrel. So I didn't want to take it out and shoot it with it missing two barrel bands. So I decided I had some scrap leather, and I just put it on where they used to be and tied them real tight, and even was able to make it sling swivel out of leather and to put an old kind of frontier style sling on it, as you can see, which I like that. It gives it a nice look. And it worked great. And it does give it an old frontier look, like maybe some guy brought it back from war and used it a lot, and it kind of, he had to manufacture his own parts, use it, to make it functional. Some people have said, will it rust the barrel? It can. I usually move them off, scrub them, retie them just to prevent that, but it works great. So if you're planning to get one of these, that's the problem you might face, is the barrel bands are probably going to come loose, because Pedersoli used cheap glue, and once that barrel got hot, the glue wore out and they just fell off. So if you're planning to get one of these, just know that that's a possibility. Now there's the 1777 Charleville, and I believe the 1795 Springfield that they make, where they have barrel band springs. So there's no way for the barrel band to come undone. But at the time, these were cheaper and more available than those two guns, so I ended up getting this. So just know that it's probably gonna have that problem, but it's still a great quality gun. Like I was saying on the quote unquote brass furniture, it's not true brass. It's got that brass coating, and you can kind of see where it's been scratched a little bit, where it's coming undone down the buttstock, and even up front here where it's starting to chip. So if I had to say one thing to Pedersoli, I say go ahead and use a true brass part, because that would just look better. And the older the gun gets, the more it's going to tarnish and it's going to look more used. It's going to look better. That's just my professional opinion. I just think true brass looks better. The lock is very good. Get that off. But the one thing I have noticed, and I believe these are 1 by 1 1/4 inch flints, and if you can see, it doesn't strike the frizzen very high. It hits more in the middle. That's one problem I've noticed with this particular gun. And in doing that, you can start to have some misfires. So I think in order to fix that, I may have to get some longer flints if they're available. I wish that they had fixed that with the lock where it struck more on the top, you're gonna have less misfires that way, and you're not gonna go through through as much flints in doing that, and it's gonna make more sparks. The gun's gonna go off a lot more. But the lock is pretty neat. I like on top of the hammer, it's got, pardon me, I'm drawing a blank on the part here, but if you compare it to the Brown Bess here, it's where you can put maybe a little pin or something or a flathead screwdriver to tie it down. This one, however, is a very big one, and you can put, I've used my ball starter to put in there, and I like doing that because I find it easier to tie down a new flint, and it's a lot easier to do in the field because you can do it with your hands a lot easier. So that's pretty neat. I do like that design. The lock works great, sparks good, but I have, because of that issue, and you can see, it looks like it would strike high, but it actually strikes pretty low, and as the flint dulls out, it starts to strike lower and lower and lower. Good half cock position, don't have to worry about an accidental misfire, especially with the hammer stall, so that works great. There's no major markings on the lock. It's kind of just standard. They did a good job with fitting all the parts as usual, so good deal there. Another thing is the trigger, and as you can see, it's kind of a flat trigger. It's kind of a straight down, and it's not very long. It's kind of fat and puny. Typically with modern guns, I like a flat trigger because usually it helps with my accuracy. But what I've noticed is to shoot it, it gives a little too much, and it's kind of difficult sometimes with this gun to find that sweet spot on the trigger. So I wish the trigger was just a little bit longer. I think that would help a little bit more with the accuracy, in my opinion. But it works great. It's not a heavy trigger pull, it's more of a long trigger pull where it just right there, then the gun goes off. So it's not bad at all. That's mainly it over the reproduction itself. Like I said, went over the issues I've had, but it's been a powerhouse, and it's been my first flintlock, true Pedersoli flintlock musket that I've owned, and I enjoy it. And it gives it a frontier look. That's kind of what I wanted, is a gun that looked like a farmer or rancher would have had back in the day. So pretty good little gun there. Next off, let's go over the Brown Bess, also by Pedersoli. Now this one is the 75 caliber, like I mentioned earlier, as you can see that big old bore. So it's slightly bigger than the 1757 and its other predecessor weapons. Now right off the bat, this gun is a lot lighter than this one. So I have noticed in shooting differently, I'm not dropping the gun as much because this does get heavy after shooting it so much. But this gun has performed very well so far. Luckily, I hadn't had a misfire yet. I know that's inevitable, it's gonna happen, but I've put about 15 rounds through it, and it has performed just flawlessly. What I was talking about with the brass furniture, this is actual real brass. As you can see, it's starting to tarnish, which I like. I like the real brass furniture. It just looks prettier. I do like the thicker trigger guard versus this one. It's kind of, you know, swollen here, and then, but I like this real thick trigger guard, just in my opinion. With the ramrod, or here, let me start over. With this gun, it does not have barrel bands, which all the Brown Bess models throughout history never had barrel bands, but pins that are all down the stock that connect to the barrel, which keep the barrel to the stock, and also this screw back here, kind of that screws into the trigger plate, which helps keep the barrel down. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, aren't you worried about blowing it, you know, wearing that out? Well, not necessarily. These are designed to do that, even as a reproduction. Now, unless you're a professional, I don't recommend taking the pins out all the time, unless you really have to, because you can weaken or damage those, and it could affect your accuracy, or your barrel could become really loose. As far as fitting for the brass furniture, didn't really go over that on the 1757. This one has really good fitting. The fitting on this is quite well. It is really, really good. On the Brown Bess, however, I have noticed some spots, because this is all milled out by machine. It's not done by hand. You can see there's some spots where the wood didn't quite fit correctly. Right here, see, it just kind of doesn't fit too well. It's not bad. I'd probably rate it an 8 out of 10. There's one way up here, as you can see, that big old gap where it just didn't quite fit. Now it's not going to come off. Like it's still, you can see all the pins. It's not going to come off. Hence why I don't recommend taking the pins out all the time unless you absolutely have to, like you dropped it in a river or something. With that, the lock is a lot different versus the 1757, as you can see. From what I've been told, these markings are not correct on the lock. Doesn't really bother me as much, but I know a lot of historical shooters, they don't like that. I'm not for sure on what exactly is supposed to be on here. Let me know down in the comments what that is. But it's kind of neat having a year date and having the crown stamped on it. It's kind of neat. A little bit in comparison. Not necessarily fatter, but it's more swollen. This is more flat. This lock's got a swell to it. So I enjoy that pretty well. Lock works great, and going over the frizzen like with the 1757. As you can see where the flint is hitting, it's hitting at the very top of the frizzen, which really is what you want to minimize your misfire rate and to get the most out of the flint to spark and set off the gun, which has helped this gun obtain great accuracy. And even when you cock it, you can see how far back the flint goes, and it's hitting about that same position that you want. Now I'm using the same size flints on both of these guns, and that could be the reason that the 1757 has a little bit more misfires. So again, if you think you can figure that out for me, let me know in the comments. The flash guard is not historically correct. I've mentioned this before. That was used for reenactments, so the guy next to you, when you would shoot, where's that flash gonna go? Right here. So that covers the guy next to you from getting the hit in the face with burning powder. So if you ever saw The Patriot where they're aiming and they turn away, that's kind of why. They didn't want to get hit in the face with their other guys burning powder. So I like to do that. It's also got the crown stamped into it, also brass, which just matches the gun beautifully. It looks just wonderful. I love it. The trigger. We talked about the trigger on the 1757. This one is a little bit fatter and a little bit longer, as you can see, and it's got a curvature to it versus the straight trigger. To be honest, from shooting both of these, I prefer this one a little bit. It's kind of the same thing. It's not a heavy trigger, it's a long trigger. And I can, for my finger and my position of my hand, it just feels more comfortable with my trigger finger when I'm about to fire. Because with more trigger, you can find that true sweet spot to get better accuracy even with the smoothbore musket. So there is that. With there not being any barrel bands, I don't have to worry about the sling swivels. They're part of the gun, so that helps too, versus me having to make my own. So, that's a plus. Again, love the brass furniture. I love the thickness of the buttstock. Kind of the same as the 1757. It just feels comfortable. I feel like I can get better aim with the Brown Bess. And it's got forgive me, I've forgotten the name of this, but I'm gonna call it the swell. I'm pretty sure that's correct, of the stock, as you can see, where it's a little bit fatter. And I like to put my hand grip up there, kind of feel it. You can move back and forth, but it's kind of good to feel that swell in the stock to make it more comfortable for shooting. Ramrods are about the same. I think the 1757 has, or the Brown Bess has the trumpet ramrod, which is good, works great. And this one's got more of a elongated, kind of like a funnel. If I had to pick, I kind of like that ramrod a little better. Even though they both work fine, it's not going to damage anything. I just kind of like that. But this does match the Brown Bess really well. It just looks good. Haven't got a sling for it yet, got to. But as far as misfires for both of these guns, the Brown Bess has performed better with misfires than the 1757, even though they're both Flintlock muskets made by the same company. Now again, I think that's just because I need to get a better flint, and I'm using 4F. But I have noticed that the Brown Bess is more of a boom, almost instantaneously. 1757, again, could be from the flint, it's more of a kaboom. Not horrible, but you do notice a difference when you shoot both of them. So I may just have to do some research. Again, let me know in the comments down below. It's going to help me out. But yeah, so that's the major difference for both of these guns. And something else I want to go over for both guns is, we'll start with the 1757, is the pans. Now, if you want to look closely, you can see it's kind of a long pan. It's kind of deep, kind of resembles like a Pritchett bullet almost. And it's very fat. You can put a lot of powder in there, which if you know enough about flintlocks, necessarily more powder in the pan's not the best thing. And that's probably why I'm experiencing more of a kaboom. It's not really slow, but you can notice a difference. And I think that's why that is. I probably just need to be putting more priming powder in, but I just want to make sure the gun goes off. And another thing is the touch hole. As you can see, look how low the touch hole is to the pan. Now, some of you are going, isn't that what you want? It's closer to the powder. Not exactly. Now, that could be just a little bit of a factory issue. In fact, you can see where it's burning the pan because that gets hot really quick when that flame is flying out. When you shoot your flintlock, you want the spark, the flash to jump in the touch hole. You don't want it to fuse into the touch hole. You're gonna get more of a hang fire or more of a delay. Now back then, you wanted to make sure your gun went off. So that's one issue, I would say, slight issue with this particular model. Now that could just be a little bit of a factory error, but not unbearable. And I probably just need to be using less priming powder, and I need to figure out the flint problem because that may be it. So there's that, and I'll leave that on the half-cock position. And we'll take a look at the Brown Bess. Now, if you look at the Brown Bess pan, it's a lot fatter, and it's not as deep as the 1757, which I have found it puts a perfect level amount of powder, whether you're priming from the cartridge or from your horn or 4F, anything like that. So I tend to like that a little bit better. I think it holds in the pan better. You're not having as much powder sit there like a little firecracker, if that makes any sense. And also the touch hole, if you can see, it's more above the pan, which is what you want. So when the powder goes off, like I was saying, it will jump into the touch hole and you're gonna get a faster ignition. So that's another difference I've seen between the Pedersoli Brown Bess and the Pedersoli 1757 Spanish. So there's that. Another thing with these particular guns is the accuracy. Now, a lot of you may be watching going, they're smoothbore muskets and they're huge bores. You can't get a lot of accuracy. Well, you actually can. If you haven't seen both my videos, they still can take out an individual target. Now, what I have noticed with the 1757 is if you want to get the proper round ball, you basically have to mold your own or be lucky enough to find a website that has them. I mold both of my projectiles for both of these guns, but I can't find a proper ball size for the 1757. The closest I have is a 60 caliber ball that I have wrapped. I've seen people do is I wrap it in a t-shirt, cut of t-shirt to help thicken it up. Then I roll it in brown paper, I crimp it, pour in my powder, and I'm shooting about, with this one, about 110 grains of 1F, about 100 grains of 2F, depending on which powder I want to use. Works just fine, but I think the accuracy has been affected because of that, and I think sometimes that the ball can't blow past the wadding, and it throws off the accuracy, and with it being such an undersized ball, it does kind of hurt the accuracy. So I've heard of people using the .662 bullet molds, I believe that's what it is, and that's probably what I need to do to probably help with the accuracy. Now at 50 meters, I shot this recently, all shots were on target at 50 meters, but they were all over him. They were not consistent at all. With the Brown Bess, I shoot a 69 caliber round ball, no wadding or anything, roll it, crimp it, and it was about 120 grains of 1F, 110 grains of 2F, depending on which powder I want to use. Now in that video, my range video, 50 yards or 25 yards, nothing. 50 yards, nothing. It was still good. 75 yards, fired 4 times, a gust of wind hit me, I missed one. But 3 shots, I put the size of my palm offhand standing up with some wind with the Brown Bess. Maybe I got lucky, I don't know. I just seemed to feel better with the Brown Bess and what it was doing. Shot great. I was amazed with the accuracy for an old style gun and the massive bore it has. So the rumor that you can't hit anything with these guns, no, you can actually patch round balls with these, use toe, all different types of method. These even double as shotguns. You can put bird shot in it or buckshot, buck and ball. So there's that. So I may have to get a new ball size for the 1757 to try and help tighten that grouping up just a little bit. Weight. when it comes to both guns. The Brown Bess surprisingly is lighter. Upon looking at it, it looks like it's the heavier gun. No, in fact, this is actually a lighter gun, and it's about 1.5 inches shorter overall length than the 1757. 1757 has a lot of weight to it, and I don't sway very much with it. That's a good thing. Brown Bess, I sway just a little bit, but nothing too much. So if a gust of wind hits you, your shot might be blown off, but that could happen with any flintlock. But I do seem to like the Brown Bess weight more because it does feel better and more comfortable, and my forearm's not going to get as tired as fast versus shooting the heavier gun. So some bigger guys may want the heavier guns. Guys like me maybe want the slight lighter one. It's just a personal preference, but just know that between these two models. And I'm sure it changes between all the models as well. So there's that. Price. When I bought the 1757 about a year and a half ago, I think I got it on sale at Dixie Gunworks for about $9.50, which that was a steal, I thought. And I got it, again, shot it, loved it. Right now, I think they've changed to nearly $1,200. So that tells you with everything going on, inflation, everything like that, and they're coming from overseas, costs a little bit more. The Brown Bess, depending on where you buy it from, is anywhere from $1,500 to $1,700. Now, some of you are going, whoa, that's a lot. Yes, it is. There's other websites like the Indian Trade Muskets that are a lot cheaper, but they're not the quality these guns are. So if you're looking for a Pedersoli that's high quality, especially the Brown Bess, which is one of the most popular ones they make, you're going to pay for it, but you are getting your money's worth, so just know that. There's many places to find those, and the prices vary depending on where you're buying it from. So just know that there is quite a bit of price difference, about $600 difference between the two guns. So you just got to really know, and that's kind of why I did this episode, is to help people understand both these style of muskets. So that's really pretty much it. I wasn't going over any history. I just wanted to go over both of these guns, compare the two in little details. I'm sure there's a lot more that I left out. In fact, I did. One more thing. And we'll just get up here and show you real quick. The front sight / bayonet lug is just a little fat rectangle. Now that's a pretty big front sight, but this is a big bore gun. And there is no rear sights on these guns, by the way. The military didn't seem like you didn't need it. It was a smooth bore. And as you can see on the 1757, it's not quite as fat. It's more of a square. So this one, both of them are pretty tall. So I have noticed with both of them, they shoot a little bit low. So depending on the range, 50 meters, they do tend to shoot low. The Brown Bess, if you saw my video, the shots were low, and it wasn't because the ball was dropping. Get your laughs out, I know. But it was because when I used my off eye, I could see where I was aiming and the barrel was pointed down. So depending on which gun you have or the Brown Bess, it might be shooting low because of that, but these guns weren't made for hole-in-hole accuracy, so just simply aim higher, or you could file down the front sight / bayonet lug if you so choose, which I've heard of guys doing that as well. So that's just one extra thing I thought of before ending the video. And that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this video. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. It's a great time to always talk about muskets, and I know things right now are kind of weird, and I'm just happy to open myself to the black powder community and anybody that's interested in these firearms. Well, guys, remember, I'm the Musket Man. Keep your powder dry. We will catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching. See you later, guys.